Hey everyone, looks like we're live. Hi, this is Paul Gale from paulgalenetwork.com, and I just wanted to say welcome everyone to what I'm doing for E3 2020. Yes, I know E3 was canceled officially a couple of months ago, unfortunately, due to the worldwide pandemic that's going on. The fear of viruses spreading, social distancing being in effect, the use of gloves and masks in public being mandatory, non essential work being temporarily closed down, and so forth. It's definitely had a hit on the economy, on people's lives. Literally, unfortunately, numbers show that 400,000 people have passed away. And, not to get into anything doom and gloom, but the reality is it's been a tough, first few months of 2020 for a lot of people. And of course, now with protests and riots, it only has added to the chaos of the year. But at one point, the ESA decided on having this period of time right now, June 9th through 11th, to be their E3 event for 2020. I got invited. This would have been my 21st consecutive E3 in attendance, which is pretty awesome, and my 20th anniversary for that matter. I've been going to E3 since I was 16 years old back in 2000. It was May at the time. May is when it took place at the time, I should say. And that was my first E3. Then I went when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, and so forth until now I'm 36 years old. E3 means a lot to me. This is a special show. I never went to E3 just to play games. I went to build connections, to talk to different people, to talk to folks that I looked up to in the video game industry that made the games that I loved. Um, I saw pictures in magazines of what the booths looked like, and they looked incredible. These giant monstrosities of plastic and texture wrapped around the South Hall, the West Hall, usually of the LA Convention Center, which is where most of the E3s have been, except for a few on the East Coast. But it was so exciting getting to go to my first E3 way back when I was only 16, and I've loved it ever since. The hype has never stopped. Each year, it's my number one most anticipated thing. You know, if you look at one single event and you have to pick, between football, wrestling, basketball, hockey, any kind of concert, whatever, E3 is it for me. That's the biggest thing. Now I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a father of two, and it's great getting to share my passion of video games. In particular Nintendo, if I had to pick. This is, by the way, the new Super Mario Bros. Jacket that I got from Levi's, and I'm wearing beneath it my, wrong side. It's mirrored, so this is actually my left, and this is my right. So, anyways, my Bowser T-shirt, which is really cool, and my Super Mario Brothers denim Levi's crazy jacket that I got a month or so back. And this is what I was going to wear for E3 this year. I also have the Levi's Super Mario Brothers printed jeans that I was going to wear. So I'd be a walking, easy to spot PGN at E3 wandering the halls this year. But, things change. So what is this right now? What am I going to do? A little bit of it is a look back on E3, you know. Uh, Maybe a little bit of reflection from the last 20 shows that I've been to. If anything pops up in the next 3 days from Nintendo, from Microsoft, from Sony, Capcom, anybody, even though E3 is officially canceled, and I doubt any company is going to call it their E3 Direct or E3 presentation because they'd have to work with the ESA to officially get that down, and it's just not going to happen. But you will see, because this is a time of the year anyways, for the last couple of months, video game companies have been preparing to have news and trailers and announcements, and they have to still withhold certain agreements for stockholders, people who own shares in their companies, and so forth, that you're probably still going to see some things this week. Sony, for instance, is going to have a PlayStation 5 event this Thursday. That's something that you should be looking forward to. That's something that should be pretty cool. We're going to see some games specifically for the PS5, whether they are exclusive games designed, just for PlayStation 5 or some cross-platform stuff, PS4, PS5. Will they be in-house first-party games from like their Sony Santa Monica studios, or third-party efforts on the system, collaborative stuff? We don't know yet. We've seen the controller. Will we get a release date of the console this Thursday? Maybe. Will we get to see what the system looks like? Perhaps. I don't know. Will we get a price? Maybe. I don't think we're going to get too much. I think Sony's going to trickle things out. And that's another thing, talking about that briefly, is also what this video today is. Part of it, yeah, a reflection on some of my experiences in E3 over the years, but also a little bit of a thought of what I thought E3 might have brought us this year had it, been occurring live. Right now, I'd be in LA Convention Center, and what I think might happen this week. So let's continue on that PlayStation front. What we know is we're going to get an hour-long or so presentation this Thursday by Sony. We're going to see the PlayStation 5 and what it could do game-wise. Real gameplay, probably. Trailers for stuff. Will the titles that they show be made ready for launch this fall? This November, December, when the PS5 is coming out? That I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they, to try to build up the most amount of hype, show off titles that are in development that aren't going to come out for a couple of years, but also games that are in development that are going to be ready for launch. Like Spider-Man 2, for instance. Sony, Insomniac Games, great folks over there at Insomniac. I know Brian Intihar from way back in the day. Hey, Brian, from EGM days, gamers.com, oneup.com days. So he's over there at Insomniac. I know that they're working on Spider-Man 2, at least unofficially, But that game's not going to be something that's ready for PS5 launch. But could they show it off in a little bit of a trailer-like way, maybe a little bit of gameplay thrown in there as like, this is to come on PS5 exclusively. No tentative date, no tentative month, or not even a year yet, perhaps, but this is what you could look forward to seeing. Whoa, that's cool. Here's a little look of Spider-Man running on PS4, and then here's what it'll look like with its future compatibility on the PS5 when you play it. Okay, cool. Like, we might see that kind of stuff, but could there be something along the lines of a Horizon Zero Dawn 2? That's a game that came out in 2017, the first one, I should say. You're looking at 3.5 or so years later as a decent amount of development time. If that studio wrapped up work on that game, knew like, hey, PS4 is kind of on its way out. We've got a few years to PS5. How about we launch that system with a strong game, with a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn, which was received very well and is a very good game. Kind of like how Nintendo busted out the launch of the Nintendo Switch with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And, could Horizon Zero Dawn 2 be shown off this Thursday and be ready for launch come November, December this year? I think so. I think that is more likely to be a game that's shown and be a game that's ready than Spider-Man 2. But Spider-Man 2 could still be shown, but like I said, I don't think it's going to be ready for a while. And what about a Ratchet and Clank? There's rumors going along around that a new Ratchet and Clank game is in development. Now, whether it would be a sequel to the reboot that came out from a couple of years ago, or a sequel to the original trilogy or the original set of 6 primary games, hard to say. Is it even going to happen? I don't know. But I expect some good stuff. Probably some third-party efforts as well. We could see a developer, a publisher like Capcom show something exclusive. They did Street Fighter V exclusively for PlayStation 4. Could we get a Street Fighter V Super Edition for PS5 get shown off? Another exclusive, just in the family of Street Fighter V, but with a new prefix or suffix, and that be a game, or Street Fighter 6. I don't know how much I think that's going to happen. If I were Capcom, personally, I would make Street Fighter available on all platforms, because there are fighting game fans that own all different systems. Not everybody buys all the systems. I own everything. I have my Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. I have a PC, obviously, which I am at now. I have my iPhone, with Zelda on it. So, well, with Link, I should say. But I play on everything. I don't play too many games on iPhone or mobile devices, but definitely on my 3DS, Switch, PS4, Xbox One. That's where I play most everything. So I'm gonna get Street Fighter, is what I'm saying, regardless of the system. But a lot of people just own one, and I think that Street Fighter is a franchise that has so many fans across so many platforms that it's probably in Capcom's best interest to capitalize on that audience, multiple audiences, and release it on everything. That being said, you never know what's going on behind the scenes at companies, and it could be exclusive again. Resident Evil 8, another one that I don't think is going to be exclusive on any platform, but could Capcom use this Thursday's PlayStation 5 event to reveal for the first time RE8 or Resident Evil 4 Remake? That might be. So Capcom and Sony have a pretty good working relationship, so they may use that. Same with the new Monster Hunter World 2, or some new Monster Hunter game. Could Ubisoft be there, Activision or EA showing off a game at this event? We'll see. It's exciting. So I will be back regardless this Thursday, definitely during the spirit of E3 time, with a live feedback, reaction video, discussion video of this PS5 event. During this time, will Nintendo show anything? It's crazy to think that just a couple of hours ago, I live like 20 miles from the LA Convention Center. So for me, it's a quick drive away. My friend and I usually drive together, and we park and just maximize all 3 days, beginning to end, every hour of that day, just sucking up all of that beauty that is E3. So it's crazy to think. Right now it's on the West Coast and California, 1:07 p.m. E3 would have already been underway for the last couple of hours or so for us media, and probably open to the public soon, or maybe already open to the public. They had a little bit bigger of a gap time between media and industry folks, which is the one of two passes that I usually get, and regular badges. There was a little bit bigger of an amount of time that media and industry were going to get this year before they opened the gates, so to speak, to the whole public. But regardless, E3 is happening right now. And usually Nintendo is for the past few years, since they've moved from the live performance, which I used to love going to, sitting in the theater and just seeing Reggie, Mr. Iwata on stage, Mr. Miyamoto, and so forth, just standing up there talking, being able to talk with them afterwards, seeing fellow Nintendo friends that I've made from the last 20 years, in attendance also, standing off to the side, talking before, afterwards. Like, it's just like an exciting time. But for the last few years, Nintendo has done these Nintendo Direct presentations, and they were great, and actually some people prefer it. I'll always probably personally like going to these events. It just feels bigger for me. But I have to say, it is probably more convenient and easier for companies to pull off a pre-recorded 45-minute or so presentation. And that's kind of what Sony is doing this Thursday. But man, if it wasn't for the global climate, and I totally understand why everybody closed the big events, comic book shows, movie theaters closed, concerts, sporting events, and my beloved E3, because of health concerns and stuff like that. So it's understandable, but still unfortunate, because just a few hours ago, I would guess like 9 a.m. Pacific time, so 4 hours ago, this beautiful Nintendo Direct would have begun. How would it have started, Did they show off Paper Mario, the Origami King, earlier on purpose? Were they planning on waiting till E3? I don't know. If they were going to wait till E3 and still release it July 17th, that's a really narrow gap. I mean, it was only 2 months in the first place, which is very narrow, but if they waited till June, it was going to be really close. Or was it always going to be shown off in May? So if that's the case, what were they going to, show off this morning for the first time? Could it have been, in celebration of Mario's 35th anniversary from the original Super Mario Brothers for the NES? Here's a look back at Super Mario 3D Collection, and this glorious trailer would unfold of Super Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy. Boom! But that's not all. Here's the Super Mario, 3D world. Boom! And here's this awesome collector's box that you could get with a cool Pro Controller and a little Mario statue of some sort. And, I don't know. It's just really neat thinking of what might have been. What would they show off throughout the 45-minute presentation? Could they have finally given us a trailer of Metroid Prime 4? It was E3 2017, June, 3 years ago, where they had that beautiful blue, black, silver Metroid Prime 4 reveal logo. And later that day, they showed off Metroid, Samus Returns for the 3DS. But Metroid Prime 4 shown off then. You have to think that the game was, in development for 3 to 6 months at that point. Something unfortunately happened. We got notified January 2019, if I'm not mistaken, that Metroid Prime 4 has essentially begun anew in terms of development, and now it's back in the hands of Retro Studios. So now we're looking at, okay, January 2019. That's a year and a half ago. Maybe work began, let's call it November 2018, right? So you're definitely over a year and a half. You're like a year and 8 months of development on this game. Definitely enough time, I think, to show off some footage of it at E3 this year. Would they have? I don't know. But it also makes the question, it's deeper. Like, there's so many rabbit holes. There's so many chambers of discussion from one. And I'm trying to not to get off topic, but it's going to be difficult because there's a lot to talk about. But how far is Retro Studios in development of this game? It's no doubt going to be big. It's going to be ambitious. Nintendo has nailed it with the Zelda franchise. Breath of the Wild was fantastic. They put a lot of development, a lot of money into that game, and it really paid off. It's fantastic, and it's the best-selling Zelda ever. They put a lot of effort into Super Mario Odyssey, the first game in the Mario franchise with lyrics in the main song, main theme. They went all out for it at E3 back in 2017. Everything was like New Donk City, and the E3 show floor just looked awesome. It breathed Mario that year, just like how 2016 breathed Breath of the Wild. So, anyways, like I said, that's another hole to go down. E3's Nintendo booth layout. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about Metroid Prime 4. How far in development is it over at Retro Studios? Are they ready to show something off? And did they literally start from scratch, from ground zero, call it November 2018? Or were they using some of what was already built for the game? Because surely not everything was trashed, right? If Bandai Namco and some other teams were working together with Nintendo on Metroid Prime 4, are you telling me that, the whole, what was it? I'm approximating like January 2017 to November 2018. You telling me that like almost 2 years worth of development time is completely lost? I doubt that. Surely some polygonal models of Samus were still usable. The songs that were composed of, the sound effects for Samus Aran's blaster, some level design, some 3D model work of the environments, some of the art that they came up with for boss battles. Like, is any of that usable? Did they have to just rebuild the engine? Could they use anything? Because what I'm getting at is that just makes the game that much more likely to have been shown, to be able to be still shown off this week, right? It also makes the development time take a little less time for Retro Studios, so that instead of truly starting day one, January 2019, with nothing on the plate and building the game from scratch and not seeing the game come out till, March 2022, which would give the game, a little over 3 years development time. Maybe it could come out sooner than that. Maybe it's a November 2021 title because they were able to use assets that the other team before them already contributed. But hard to say. I don't know if we'll ever find out the full story, who exactly was involved in the development process, but maybe. But Metroid Prime 4 reveal, could we get that this week? Could we have gotten it in the Nintendo Direct? I don't know. Metroid Prime Trilogy, that's another rumor that's been going on for a long time. Is it actually happening? Or is it all bogus? Surely it's got to be in the works, right? But again, we don't know. What about the trailer in Paper Mario and the Origami King? The very end, where Mario's got the helmet on, blasting away. If that's just a little glimpse of the game, it's kind of weird for Nintendo to put that part in, because they are aware of what the fans are asking for, what the fans are getting impatient over. So I don't think it's just a tease just to be silly. Nintendo makes calculated decisions. It's a big business. They have a lot of smart people working there. So I don't think it's just a tease at nothing, to tease us. I think it's a tease or a hint at something to come. Maybe it truly is that in the game, it's a little glimpse of things to come, like, you could don the helmets or the wigs or the costumes of different characters from the Nintendo universe. You could pick up Link's Master Sword. You could pick up Fox McCloud's blaster. Maybe that kind of stuff is in Paper Mario Origami King, but maybe not. Maybe it was like, okay, fans, we got you. We know what you want. Stay tuned a little bit longer. It's kind of a delay, but we're going to give you some Metroid news soon. That's what everyone's hoping for. It's one thing to hope. It's another thing to think, like, legitimately, is that the case? I'm leaning towards thinking optimistically that something Metroid is going to come soon. So what else could we have seen in this Nintendo Direct trailer? There's got to be some type of third-party montage, right? Doom Eternal. I think we would see that. What else? There's so much that we don't know, There's so much that we don't know. It's hard to make predictions on what do you think actually might have been in this Nintendo Direct, and at the same time, what actually is secretly in development behind the scenes, and what might we see this week, because it's still a possibility. Even if Nintendo does not, come out with us tomorrow morning, here's our surprise, we're having a special Nintendo Switch presentation, which will be a segment of video trailers in succession showing off a dozen or so games. Stay tuned to Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time. See you then. Like, even if that doesn't happen, could they still do a drop on Twitter like they did with Origami King? We'll see. But you have to think things are just about being ready to be shown, right? Now, unfortunately, the pandemic did impact businesses quite a bit, Nintendo included. So the ability to wrap up trailers isn't as easy. The ability for developers to come together and work on games in one area isn't as easy. So, things are tough. unless if you're having masks on everybody and, standing in front and saying, welcome to today's Nintendo Direct of this and this. I mean, not to say it's silly because it's important. There's a reason why, people are doing it. That's the reality. But for this video to last forever, do you want necessarily that image to always be in it? Or do you want to do something differently and you want to have it looking professional too? Like, no offense to myself, but this is a very casual, open, real life, no green screen behind me. You've got the Samus Aran statue behind me over there, and you've got, let's see, the Bowser statue over this shoulder right over there. And, this is my living room. This is my life. Nintendo's not going to do that. You want to have a good microphone and a good camera system, and ideally people to edit it and have different faces, have different voiceovers, Japanese to English translation. A lot of work goes into it, even if it's just what we see, this nice, seamless 48-minute presentation. A lot of work goes behind the scenes. So that's why we probably won't get a Nintendo Direct, but it doesn't mean we can't get something. Breath of the Wild 2, that's a trailer that I'm thinking we would have seen. Oh yeah, we would have seen a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. It's been long enough since they, showed it off that the game is in development. Here is some footage very early on. Check it out. I think we could see that this week. If they're going to show something, I think it's got to be Mario related and Breath of the Wild 2 related, Then there's Bayonetta 3. That's another one. We haven't seen anything on that game except for that opening little trailer tease of Bayonetta falling apart kind of after facing off with an enemy. No More Heroes 3. We just got the first screenshot of in-game footage. And it looks cool, at least from that shot. How about third-party collabs? Nintendo said that they will not be releasing any new hardware this year. Could they have changed their minds? Could they reveal something and not release it, like Nintendo Switch Plus coming out in 2021, March? Maybe. That's a possibility. But does no new hardware also mean nothing like, okay, no Nintendo 64 Mini, no Game Boy Mini, or Game Boy Advance Mini, something like that? Like, is that also entail hardware that nothing can come out this Christmas time? Hard to say. I hope we get something cool. Not that I mind, just talking like this, live, answering a question if somebody has a question of a particular E3. Me try to think back in the data banks of my mind of, okay, what happened at what show, what was a highlight, what I think is going to happen over the next couple of days, if anything, just reminiscing and hypothesizing and stuff like that. I don't mind that, but it would be nice, to have a picture-in-picture like some of my other videos on YouTube and on PaulGaleNetwork.com of, here's a trailer, I'm going to watch it live, let's look and be happy together. That's what I would like to bring. But, yeah, this is an interesting video. I wasn't sure exactly how it would go down, but I'm just talking live and you're getting what you're getting, so hopefully it's a little bit entertaining, and, yeah, hope you enjoy this discussion. Microsoft jumped early by showing off the Xbox Series X in a really shocking way at the Video Games Live. No, not Video Games Live. Sorry. The Video Game Awards show. Video Games Live is by my good buddy Tommy Tallarico, whom I met at E3 for the first time. See, that's why E3 is such an awesome place to meet people, to become friends with people. Not just contacts, not just sources, but friends. People that you've known for 17, 18, 19 years. Like, that's a cool place. But anyhow, Jeff Keighley, who runs Video Game Awards, whom I've also met several times at various E3s. Um, it was at his event last December, like 7th-ish or so, where Microsoft showed off Xbox Series X. Like, here's the look of the console. What? Here's the controller. Okay. And, Microsoft has had their opportunity to, show off earlier this year some footage of games running on the system. They're having a little bit different of a strategy than Sony. Hardware-wise, on the surface, in most categories, it looks like Xbox Series X is going to be the more powerful system. However, with the SSD speed, you have to give it to PlayStation 5 in that territory. Both are high in the teraflops, high in the CPUs, high in the GPUs, both using SSDs, both having some type of backwards compatibility. Which system is going to have the better looking games? Time will tell. Which system will have the better feeling controller? Also, time will tell. Usually, by now, with PlayStation, what you're going to get controller-wise. The PlayStation controller has been a very small, not even steady evolution. They haven't taken many risks with the PlayStation controller, PS1 controller, like Super NES, but with little prongs and 2 shoulder buttons and extra, making it 4. PS2, all right, let's add 2 analog sticks, which actually came previously in the PlayStation 1 DualShock. PS3, very similar. You have clickable sticks and depressed face buttons, adding for more pressure, and some motion controls. PS4, they changed the ergonomics a bit more, added the touchpad, the light bar. PS5 seems like, okay, this is the first big change in their controller. Like, the first 4 you could say are very similar. This one, still similar in the sense that they went for symmetrical analog sticks, but the buttons are a little bit different. They're more similar to PSP, PS Vita. Even the D-pad's a little bit different. The color out of the box, going with primary color being white, that was different. But it looks cool. It looks like they've seen what the competition has done, being Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and how many people love that thing, and the Xbox One controller, and before it, the Xbox 360 controller, and how a lot of people like, what Nintendo does ergonomic-wise, a little bit bigger size, and what Xbox does ergonomic-wise. So it seems like Sony has adopted a little bit of, you could say borrowed, a little bit of the feeling of what the other platforms do controller-wise, but sticking to this is the way we like it, symmetrical gaming. We're not going to change it up that much on our audience, because we have some fans that have been with us for 26 years, since 1994 when PlayStation first came out in Japan, and this is what people are used to. Even though the dual analog stick didn't come to the PlayStation for a couple of years later, still, this is what people are used to. This is going to be our thing. This is what separates us from the competition. Maybe that's probably it. They have an audience deeply cemented into that, and you have people that fall in different camps of where you like your analog sticks and stuff. But with the Xbox controllers, since we're talking about controllers, 360 was a solid controller. It got better in time, I think, and by Xbox One, and what Series X seems to be just some slight modifications. You kind of know what you're getting. This time around, you don't know what's going to feel better in your hands. You don't know in terms of battery life and that kind of thing, what's going to be better. And functionality-wise, Xbox is pretty much their base controller, but Sony has doing a little bit something different with some haptic feedback. Now, the haptic feedback, I don't know if people realize what it's going to feel like, but I have a pretty good idea. If you go on YouTube and type in Novent Falcon Gale Network, I think it's around E3 2007, which this would be called E4All 2007, Novent Falcon Gale. You'll see a video of mine in which the Novent Falcon was this device, and you grabbed onto it, and on the screen, with multiple sensors having different jolts, it would feel like you're combing your hand through molasses, or you're very rigidly going over a hard rocky surface, or very fine motors within shaken, vibrating just ever so gently back and forth to feel like you're going over sandpaper, or that's a weird sound effect, going through honey, like I think that's going to be this haptic feedback technology in the PS5 controller, different than Nintendo with the HD Rumble. The HD Rumble, to make sense of that, is you have this grid throughout your controller with multiple little sensors in it, and it could vibrate very precisely all along the way, and that's why like the best thing that you could hand someone, the best example that you could hand someone for the Nintendo Switch controller, the Joy-Con, is 1-2 switch, the little mini game where you're guessing how many marbles are in this box, which is your controller. That's fantastic. That's incredible. As you roll it like this, clunk, 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 clunk. You could feel multiple different sensors going on, but I think the PS5's controller is going to be a little bit different. And that's one of the cool things about the video game industry, is that companies keep building upon each other. They build upon each other. Usually, if I have to give credit, I got to give credit to Nintendo for being the biggest pioneer in the video game industry. They usually take the most risks, I have found. Hit or miss, more hits than misses. And when they have a hit, you betcha other video game companies are going to follow in terms of touchscreen controls, motion controls, D-pad, face button gaming, rumble technology, wireless technology, Wavebird, advanced rumble, HD rumble, so got to give it to Nintendo. But that being said, you take somebody like Sony or Microsoft, they also have their things that they were the ones to bring it to the industry that has now become a standard. But they've also taken what Nintendo has done and find a way to make their own version of it, sometimes better, sometimes worse. But in this case, I think the PS5's haptic feedback controller is going to be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to checking it out, seeing what that is like. But going back to Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5, Microsoft has a very big catalog of games over the last few generations, and they're saying this thing is going to be backwards compatible with Xbox 360, Xbox One games, Xbox Series X enhanced games, from 2001 to 2020. It's going to have 19 years of history. Maybe not every single game in that whole almost 2-decade history available, but a lot from each system, and that's impressive. Sony, as far as we know, is just going to be the vast majority of PS4 games, but not PS1, 2, or 3. Could that be a surprise, though? That would be pretty big. That would be a good surprise, but hard to say. So, it's also Microsoft's strategy where all third-party developers making games for the Xbox Series X for the next 2 years, they have to make sure that games coming out on the Series X are also playable on the bare bones basic model Xbox One that came out November 2013. That's good for Xbox One owners that aren't ready to jump to the next level and get a Series X, but it also means that for Series X owners, they're not necessarily truly seeing what the system is capable of for the first couple of years. But it lets you buy it early, be an early adopter, and play these Xbox One games now in better quality, previous games from your library that you could now download or maybe pop in the disc and play to a better quality, higher resolution, better frame rate, and so forth. and play new games that are coming out that you could be playing on your Xbox One, but now are choosing to do on Series X, you know, in a more glorious visual fidelity. But it looks like PlayStation 5, not to say that they're abandoning ship of PS4, as they still have a couple of games coming out, but I don't know if Sony's going to have, like Spider-Man 2, for instance. Let's say that game is ready, Insomniac gets that game ready by November 2022, 2 years into the PS5's lifetime. Is that game going to have a version of it, be available on PS4? They could, but it would almost need a different team to shrink down the size and the scope that they have envisioned of Spider-Man 2 on PS5 if they make a PS4 version, because if they really want to maximize the PlayStation 5's hardware, they don't want to have that limit of PS4 can't quite do this. So instead of just dumbing down the graphics and the gameplay and the world size and the visual fidelity, they might need someone else to handle a PS4 version. And then are they going to do that? I don't think so. Obviously, I think Sony would probably want the best of both worlds. Sell Spider-Man 2 on the system that has 115 million owners by 2022, right, of PS4, but also really wow people into wanting to buy a PlayStation 5 because Spider-Man 2 is going to look sick on that system. But I don't know if they will take that approach. We'll see. But regardless, it's pretty interesting. Okay, you could go. What's going to be the better gameplay? Literally, the strategy, the game plan, I should say, behind the scenes between Sony and Microsoft. Who has the better approach? Architecture-wise in the hardware, controllers, because you have to imagine the PS5 controller is probably going to be more expensive. Which system costs more? Are there multiple SKUs available of one or another? Does one company have the ability that you could pay off your system similar to a phone, where you're paying in installments? We'll see. I'm going to take a quick break, and I will be back to discuss more soon. PGN signing out, just temporarily. Bye.